Hello, I'm Paul Laney, the retired sheriff from Cass County, North Dakota, and the current vice president of national sales for Turnkey Corrections.
And I'm Lauren Matthews, and I'm the social media manager for Turnkey.
And you are listening to JailTalk, and today we have another great episode. We're really excited about the man sitting next to us here. We have Sheriff Kevin Torgerson from the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office in Rochester, Minnesota. He is here to tell us about social media, and they have really made their mark, and we're going to hear all about them today. So, Sheriff, thank you for taking time out of your day. I know how busy you are sitting in the room listening to you. I'm like, wow, I'm glad you had time for us because you're a busy man. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Paul and Lauren. I appreciate it very much. And thank you to Turnkey for this opportunity to tell a story that previous to all this stuff, we didn't have an opportunity for that. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Sheriff, why don't you, right off the bat, just share a little bit about yourself for our listeners?
Well, I'm a Minnesota guy. Grew up in southeast Minnesota. Went to college in the cities, and then out of college, I was hired by Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. Went to school for law enforcement, and worked in the jail the first 3 years. It was in 1980, so it was a long time ago for those listening. And
You weren't even born yet.
No, I don't know if I was a thought yet. I don't know.
Sorry, Sheriff.
Everybody was a thought. But 1980, so my first 3 years, I worked in the jail in downtown Minneapolis. Coming from southeast Minnesota, a farm kid, dairy farm, and all that. It was a change, but I was ready for it and had good training up there. And so worked with Hennepin for 6 years total, 3 years in the jail and 3 years as a dispatcher, all itching to get out on the road and be a cop in that sense and do more. And so then the opportunity came up through the testing process and things that we do in Minnesota to start my second part of my career with Olmsted County in 1986. And, really never looked back. I patrol deputy, dare officer, became a sergeant, into training, and then back to civil warrants and back to patrol as a captain. Just moved all over the place and really worked all the way up through the ranks, as they say. And, really some of those moves were not things that I thought I wanted to do, but the administrators and others thought it was a good place for me to go. And it all worked out. And I guess I'd look back at it now. It really worked out for the best.
One day you woke up and you got hit by lightning and you said, I want to run this ship. Right? And here you are.
Well, it was never the part of the plan. I was really happy when I became a captain to be a captain. About a year and a few months in patrol and then over to emergency management. And, we had some things that we needed to look at doing. And so some people were asking me to run for sheriff, and I did. And here I sit now 8 years later. So.
Well, you're certainly making your mark. And, it's interesting because a lot of times as we look at guests and as we plan things out, a lot of it falls on me and my background, my experience, and I look at, hey, let's talk about this jail issue or that jail issue. Let's talk about this sheriff's office issue because, it's also entwined into the jails. We call it JailTalk, but we're all part of the sheriff's office, and we try to bring it all in and the leadership issues and all that. But it was interesting because Lauren is our social media and content expert here and manages that department. And we were sitting around planning out law talks with Katie Mellstrom, who's our director producer, but also the head vice president of marketing. And your name came up. We were sitting around the table and they're like, hey, we need to do a show on social media. And we follow Olmsted County all the time. They just do some really cool things. Can we get him on? And you have a great rapport. I mean, obviously we've known each other as sheriffs through the years, but Melissa reached out to you because you worked with Melissa over the years. And she's like, no, I want to call him. I want to call him. And so they were really excited to get you in here. So why, tell us a little bit about that social media because they were very excited to get you on our show and to get you in here and hear about what you do. And this is kind of her world. And that's what's kind of cool today is that we always talk about my passions, but today we get to talk about a lot of yours. And so, how did it get started? When, guys our age sometimes don't go that route. But tell us how your social media got started and why you're out there.
Well, it really got kicked off when I was out in emergency management. The deputy director, so in our office in Minnesota, I know this goes all over the place, which is really cool. In Minnesota, the counties are required by statute to have emergency management. And then each county then can choose to have it sitting in whatever department a county has. Some have it in, I've heard it with people out of public health. I've heard it with people in other various departments of the county. And Olmsted County has been since back in the 70s when it was still known as civil defense. It was with the sheriff's office or somehow under the sheriff's office. And for all of those years, the 70s all the way up into the, oh God, I can't even think of when it was, I guess 2009, 10, somewhere in there. It was or it was even before that, so about 2005, actually, 4 or 5. It was a civilian who ran that area of it. And our big piece that part of it did was the severe weather warning systems, and before that was even the air raid warnings and things like that. Back in the day when everybody was afraid of what we're doing today.
Yeah, we're kind of afraid of them again.
It's back at it again. But anyway, that's how they started with civil defense warning, and then it kind of morphed into severe weather. So in Olmsted County, we have a really, really in-depth severe weather warning system, and that this guy developed, and then he retired. And our sheriff at that time, Sheriff Steve Borkart, decided to move that FTE, that position, into a captain's level position running that department, that part of our office, and that's where it started. So there was 2 other captains that were assigned out there. I was captain of patrol, and we had a change of positions, and I was moved from patrol out to emergency management, and the deputy director, who was a deputy sheriff at the time, we really wanted to start telling our story differently and getting our messages out there and connecting with people. We learned through different things, the classes I had been to, other programs and conferences I had been to, that basically, and it's true today, and it will continue to be that way until we find some other way of communication, that most people are no more than about 3 feet away from their cell phone, their handheld computer device, every second of the day. No more than, really no more than 3 feet away from it. And then granted, there's exceptions, and we're like, that's where we need to be. We need to be in the palm of the hand of everybody when the bad day hits, because they're not all going to hear the siren. They're not all going to hear the warnings. They're not going to be inside a building that they can't see outside. We need to have a way to get to them and share those messages. And, we can blow sirens all day long, but it's still, we want to be really more in the moment.
Well, and so using that as an example and as a catalyst, you think about those sirens going off, that what is right away, everybody, what's going on?
Right.
Where before, I remember those days where it'd be like, you had to try to run in and turn on a TV or something radio, like that, or a radio, and now you can go.
Sure.
It has changed so much, and because even if the sirens go off today, it doesn't give a message about what's happening, or it does the different. Some communities have the different horns mean certain things.
Yeah.
How many people really know what that is? A lot of the time, and so now they do, because they can look right down at their fingertips.
And our local media and others created their own apps, and so you got the weather app for various places and the Weather Channel and all of those things. But this was allowing us then to sound those sirens, to put those messages out, put the warnings out ahead of time, and be able to tell people what to expect and where to go and those kind of things. Everything from severe weather to heat, warnings, to cold, and trying to help people. One of the things we've done many times is if it's really hot in the summer, the buses, the city buses in Rochester will be available, and people can go in there and just ride for free so that they can get some air conditioning. And same thing in the wintertime, ride on the buses to stay warm for a little while. And we'll put those messages out that way. Again, just to propagate those messages and put the real-time information out there. And so Mike Bromberg he's one of my captains now, and he was the deputy director. We got to start social media. We got to get on Facebook. We were kind of handcuffed at the time, both via our county and our administration, and it was like, we're just going to do it. So we just started doing it. And we didn't have all the permissions. And we just said, you know what, we've got to tell our story. And so it started with our emergency management.
Sometimes it's good to be an independently elected office, isn't it?
It was. And once people started seeing the reactions we were getting and the follows we were getting, it just started to take off. And then it was hard to say no. And so then we went from emergency management. I did some things when I became sheriff that we wanted to do then, was to merge our training division and our emergency management division under the same captain position so that we could do those things together. And then we started we wanted to start our sheriff's office page, and it just took off. And at that time, it was just Mike and I and one of our staff that was managing it. And it was getting to be a lot of work. And so then I became sheriff. And so I was managing my own pages, the sheriff's page and the emergency management stuff that Mike was still doing. And it was like, we got to do something. We got to do something different and find other people that can help manage this stuff. So it's kind of how it all got started.
Awesome. Well, I mean, you two can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think sometimes there is a generational resistance to social media.
That was very strategically put for calling us old.
I've been thinking about how to say it for a while.
He's the politician in the room. That was. Wow.
That was good. Sorry to interrupt.
So I think a lot of the older generations, they just want to skip it. Like, we don't need it.
Right.
It's not important. We can communicate other ways. So why did your county, why did you guys look at it and say, this is important?
Yeah.
She wants to know why an old guy embraced this.
Why would I want to do this? Because I'm old. Because, again, we knew we could tell the story. We can go to our local media. We love our local media, both television, print, and radio. And we use all of them all the time. But we know now they really follow us that way, too, because we don't have to call them up and try to say, hey, we're going to tell you about this. They watch our stuff, and then they now reach out to us and say, hey, we want to tell your story a little bit more on whatever you did here or there. But that was our deal, is I can talk to a reporter for 15 minutes, a half an hour, and it might, if I'm lucky, they might put 2 quotes on the story at 6, maybe. Yep. Or at 10, and that's it. And then it might run on their social media, but it's going to get buried beneath the sports scores and the other stuff and what happened in the Twin Cities, which is another challenge that our office has in Homestead County, Rochester. We're an hour and a half from the Twin Cities metro area. And so what's going on in the Twin Cities is important, and we like to keep track of that. But there's so many times there's that competition between what we're doing, what Rochester Police Department is doing, and we get lost in that shuffle. Right. And so, again, we just said, we've got to tell our story and do more about that. And then I lost the rest of your question. Oh, why did we want to? The other piece of why we wanted to, sorry, folks, this is kind of how I go. Things just kind of go in and out, and you never know what's going to show up. But the thing about older people was we saw in our emergency management, we were seeing a lot of older people who were new on Facebook in 2009 and 10 and that were following us, and they were liking and sharing and talking, and we were opening up a whole new world to people that ordinarily, not so big, not such a big deal, but we saw an opening, and we just went after it.
You hit a point that I think that's one thing I really noticed as sheriff too, because obviously coming from where I came in, that Fargo-Moorhead area, you're the big media market for that area, and you knew when you were being interviewed, like you said, a lot of it gets lost because they have all the things they have to do. We had a great rapport with our media, and our media were very good, but you knew you had to almost pick your soundbite because you knew that's what it was going to go. Where you were with the media and their methods, you were going for a soundbite. Your way, you're telling your story,
right?
And you can tell it more in depth. And I think we all started realizing that we belong to the community. We work for them, and we got to tell our story because we can't always rely on the media. Because you're right, they do got to tell the high school football scores and hockey scores, and they got to tell.
They tell this much of your story or the story of your county, whereas
you as social media experts, you tell all the story and hopefully leave people wanting more and wanting to follow and learn more about that. And you certainly embrace that and have made your mark with that as we are going to.
Well, and we talked about how it's your way to directly communicate with the community.
Right.
The media can be a great tool, but it's kind of a middleman where it's like you have to give it to them, then they have to give it to. So many things get lost in translation, and social media is a great way to directly communicate with your community.
It is, and it's been fantastic. And granted, we hear back from them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
sometimes things we don't want to hear all the time. So it is that way.
Well, you got those messages too.
And we communicate back, and sometimes we don't. And sometimes we just leave it. Stay where it is. But it's all good anyway, because we hear back, and we need to know those things. We need to hear those things too, because people are looking at what we do in different ways, and it's really important in this day and age. I think back when I was a DARE guy back in the early 90s and the early 2000s, and there was, I can't remember where I was, but and I've still said it today when I go talk to new sheriffs in the state of Minnesota when we have our new sheriff academy,
right.
And I tell them, you're not doing your county or your city justice. I used to tell them this all the time. If you're not doing DARE, because you're getting right in there to the kids, you're right in the middle of it. There's so much you're doing, and now that message has changed even more and saying you are really missing out if you're not into some level of social media, because that is the path that we're on, and that's where we are right now. And if you're not doing it, I'm telling you, I'm talking to you guys out there, you need to get on the stick. You really need to get it done, because it's so important to your overall mission and the purpose that we have and telling our story that is so important.
The days of any of us laying low key and trying to let things blow over our head, I truly believe are gone.
Yeah,
and a lot of what's happening in this country, and a lot of, and you can correct me if you're wrong, if I'm wrong, Sheriff, but I think a lot of the blowback that we're getting in society is because there's a narrative out there that isn't completely true, right. And we weren't the best at telling our story and getting it out there.
Not at all.
And that's why I hope more embrace it. A big reason why we want to have you on today is that our fellow sheriffs out there, our jail administrators out there, is, so many embrace it very well, and there's some are like, well, it's just a necessary evil. It's your vehicle. Embrace that. Get in the driver's seat and go. And you're a role model.
Charge of it.
Absolutely.
And, I put it in this analogy. It's like I've got a bag of goodwill that I'm just stuffing in. Every time we put out a good story or some of what we're doing, I just fill that bag of goodwill that we have with our communities. And, if we do have a situation that just doesn't go quite right or whatever, hopefully that bag of goodwill will help outweigh some of things or something that just doesn't play well. A deputy makes a mistake here or there, something doesn't go right. Granted, we're going to face it. We're going to deal with it like every sheriff and chief should do out there. So we're going to face those things, but we know we can hopefully get over that speed bump, so to speak, and move on. And our communities will still have that great level of trust because they know that there's a lot more to us than what this one bad incident was that may have happened last year or next week or whatever. So I always look at it that way too. I'm just always putting more good stories, more good events into that bag.
And I think it's important too because you're reaching that younger generation, and we've talked about that before. They're the next upcoming generation that's going to be the sheriffs and the law enforcement and all of that. And if you can put a good connotation in their heads of what a sheriff's office is or what law enforcement is at such a young age, then it's only going to help, recruitment later on.
Yeah.
On that note, you think about that. One of the next shows we're going to be doing after this too is a young female law enforcement candidate. She graduated law enforcement school. We're going to talk to her about what is her generation looking for from us, from our agencies, and who we're going to hire. And you think about that. She is the social media generation. She's 20, going to be almost 21 years old. And she's out now. She's graduating law enforcement school. She's looking for her agency. And who do you think, and it'll be interesting to see what she has to say. But what do you think? I have no doubt part of it's going to be, I check out their Facebook pages and their web, all that type of stuff, because that's your generation's condition for that. My daughters are your age. And we talk about that a lot when we're not teasing each other, but we talk about that a lot, that's what they see. That's what they look at. And for us, it's kind of like so many from our generation. It's a necessary evil. It's something I have to do, or I just like to fly under the radar and be dark. I don't talk to the media. I don't that. We really got to change that way of thinking. And for a lot of you out there that maybe think like that, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Call this guy.
Yeah.
Or go to his pages and you know what? The best, the plagiarism is the best form of flattery in this real world. And if you copy in school, hey, it's it is plagiarism. If you copy in the real world, it's best practices.
Oh, yeah, there's some other agencies we watch.
Absolutely.
We go, because I'll see something going on and I'll text Kyle, our guy, and say, Kyle, we got to watch this. We got to do this. Or we'll be throwing links back and forth to each other saying, all right, we got to spin this on ours too. And so we're constantly, he's got a whiteboard in his office that's huge, and all the different ideas and plans and things that he's got and that people feed to him, our staff does, he comes up with. And we got all kinds of content, I think is the right word.
Yes.
Well, that leads me literally right in the next question I want to answer, because, I was going to say, being the brilliant sheriffs we are, why are we brilliant? Because we hire the right staff, right? Because it ain't because we're all that in a box of chocolates, but we surround ourselves with the right people.
That is true.
And if you surround yourself with the right people, they make you look pretty good. And you have one of those guys. In fact, our people here, they talk about you guys all the time. And as I said earlier, I wasn't making that up when I said, they wanted to get you here and they asked about getting you here. But you have a guy that you're pretty proud of.
Very
you
proud
just
of him.
Tell us about him and why you decided to go bring in somebody like this.
Yeah. Well, it started when I was in emergency management, and the captain, and Mike Bromberg, who is our captain there, was in that area then or now. We wanted to do some different things. We knew this is how we could tell our story. And so what happened was, and I forget the timeline of it, but it was not long after I became sheriff, and we had clerical staff in emergency management and then clerical staff in training. And I wanted to bring those two together. And our clerical staff, she did a great job out in emergency management. She, she was our partner in all of that we did with ideas and everything we did day to day. She left and went to a different job out in southwestern Minnesota. And there was our moment, was, okay, we're going to merge our training division and our emergency management, bring them together. We've got one clerical staff there that can manage all of that. She's just fantastic. She's planning to retire, which she wouldn't do that. But so we're going to have another person. We got to find the next gem. And so we said, you know what? We're going to create a social media position and take that clerical spot. So we didn't even add a new position for the county as far as the FTE goes, which they look at. And then the pay level was very similar. And so we put it out there. We used our social media at the time to pull that up. And we got lucky. It's just simply that. The stars aligned. All of that came together. Kyle Brott is our guy. And we talked so highly of Kyle. And he came in and interviewed. And I remember when the interviews were going on that day, they had several people who were looking for the position. And it wasn't long right after they got done with the interviews, because they were in a conference room. I wasn't participating in them. We had other staff that was doing it, and certainly Mike was. And they came in my office after he left and said, holy cow, you can't believe this guy that just came in. Kyle was working for Western Illinois University, supporting, I think that's what it was. I'm sure it was. Supporting their basketball and football teams, their men's teams. And he was chasing around. His wife, Anna, was also a marketing social media kind of person. And I don't recall what she was doing. But he grew up in Chatfield, and she was from Lewiston, which are two cities. Chatfield's right in our county, right on the edge. Lewiston's the next county over, Winona. And they were down in Western Illinois. They were just about to have a baby, or going to have a baby, or just had one. And they were like, okay, this running and chasing football teams and college basketball teams all fall and all winter. He's never going to be home. And he's like, I wanted to find something stable, something where I could do this stuff. And that was it. And so now she's got a job with a great company in Rochester doing basically the same thing. And he interviewed for them. They both interviewed for that place. And as Kyle can tell you the story if you want to talk to him at some point, that we called him like 10 minutes before the other company called him, and he was going to take whoever called first, and we got lucky. And Kyle has just been a godsend. He comes, he's the age, so he gets it. He's not, it's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's Twitter, we're on all of them, doing everything we can to put our message out. And sometimes there's not a lot that happens. I'll watch the Twitter stuff, and sometimes I'm the only one that's liking or sharing the page, on my stuff. But then you hit that story, and we never know what's going to happen. But I'll give you a tip. If you do something with your canines, that's going to get you a lot of likes. They love our dogs. They love the dogs tremendously. And then our female officers, they get so much attention. And we just did a post here of last month. So we've got a female canine officer who just went to school, and she's up in training right now. And oh my gosh, the amount of attention that post got, just telling that story. And it was just a story. It was just a picture of the two of them on a trail and telling the story of our first female officer and a canine, and boom. It's just so we never know what's going to really hit. and what's going to tell a story. And so you pull people in from all these different places, from all these and it's not always serious. We have fun. And so you pull people in on the fun stuff and the things that maybe weren't something you thought was going to get a lot of attention, but it pulls people in, and now you've got them. Now they've liked your page, and I think last I looked, there's like 17,000 people following us. And granted, it's not all of Olmsted County, but we know we're reaching a lot of people.
It's a worldwide audience out there.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. Reviewing Olmsted County positively.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Well, it is awesome. And Kyle, I will tell you this: he says really nice things about you when you're not in the room or on listening to the camera. I'm very, very proud of who you have and what you've done with it. So.
Yeah, he's done a fantastic job.
Yeah. Well, you talking about content kind of leads me to my next question, because having these pages is important, but just to have them and then to not do anything with them is almost you're going backwards.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't help you either.
No.
Like, the important thing is having the good content.
Yeah.
And that's obviously what you guys do. I mean, you guys have, you do like your Warrant Wednesdays or whatever it is. So like a little bit more serious things. You know, you do your polar plunges and of course the donut video. If you haven't seen it, find their page and check it out.
You gotta watch the donut video.
Yes, of course. So how do you as a team decide what kind of content to put out?
Well, it comes from everybody. I'll come up with some kind of crazy idea. Kyle is the keeper of all ideas. As I mentioned, he's got a whiteboard with full of content ideas and things he's got to get done and what he wants to do. But it comes from our deputies too. It comes from some crazy story. I mean, another one I think of is a few winters ago. It was kind of this time of year where it was just really cold, like on a Monday or a Tuesday, and by Thursday it was like 45 or 50 degrees. So we had this deputy who was out at our training division, and he one day was bundled up and all cold and stuff, and the next day he's in his uniform with his swim trunks on, and just a picture with his uniform top and swim trunks, and it's like, oh, this is Minnesota. You got really cold one day, and it's like we got our new spring uniform over here, and it's a joke, but again, it's showing the human side of things, and it comes from our deputies, comes from everybody. People in our community say, hey, you need to do a story about this or something like that. So sometimes we go, no, we're not going to do that. But then there's other ones too. We go, we got to find a way to get that done too. So it comes from everybody, and I'm so proud of everybody that participates. Our deputies, our staff have bought in on it because they know how important it is. And we just have a lot of fun.
I was going to say, it's not only a good way to include your community, but all of your staff too. It gets them excited too.
And then, like you said, Lauren, when we do have a serious event that we have to talk about, whether it's a crime or it's we had catalytic converter thefts going on. Oh my gosh, last year was just insane with that stuff. And so we were doing those serious stories and saying, you gotta keep an eye on this or that. Or, if you have video of a crime that happened, we had this happen over here. Look at your Ring devices and see if you've got something there. So we're using it that way too to help with that. So it's been a godsend, and I can't imagine our office doing anything else. We'll just keep plugging away.
Well, we are coming to the end of the show, and I can't thank you enough for being here. This has been really cool,
pleasure.
very informational. If you have one last thing or any final words to our listening audience, we have sheriffs, jail administrators, command positions. I mean, what would your advice be to them about social media and embracing it?
Yeah, well, you just said it. I think don't be afraid of it. It really is more of our friend than it is our foe in this sense. And our foe is not the good information, and we can do so much with it, like we talked about, to show the positive side of law enforcement, which we so need in this day and age. And you guys, thank you for doing what you're doing, because you're participating in that too. And, it means so much. So that's the message. It's really not all that complicated. It's not a whole lot that I do that's very complicated, because I'm a simple man, and it's just find things to do, tell your story, tell it in a positive way, and who knows where it's going to take you. So good luck to all of you out there. Feel free to give us a call, look us up. What do they call it? Stalk us on all our social media. I think that's the term, right?
Yeah.
We're good with all our stalkers. That's okay. We love you. And, keep at it and, go for it. And, by the way, once you start up, don't forget to tag us back and forth and do all those hashtagging and all those other likes and links and all that fun stuff.
He knows his stuff.
I better be careful. You're going to be taking over his job.
Oh, no. I'm not that guy. But do that and share it back and forth, and trust me, we'll be stalking you too. So you may have something that we might like to do, and boom, we'll put our own Olmsted County twist on it.
Well, and for all of you, and thank you for offering that. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see Sheriff Torgerson's information on how to get a hold of him and his team. And we really appreciate you tuning in today. But before we let you go, Lauren's got to do her thing.
That's right. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at JailTalk Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can always email us at jailtalkpodcast@gmail.com.
I'm Paul Laney.
And I'm Lauren Matthews.
Thank you for joining us on Jail Talk, and we will see you next time.